So the main target when you lose weight and get to a goal weight is to maintain your goal weight. However, this typically does not happen, as you'll discover. Most people regain the weight they lost and even more. And so it's really important that we have the tools and strategies needed to ensure that this does not happen. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video today. And I'm going to be talking about a process called reverse dieting. Strictly speaking, reverse dieting is the process whereby you strategically increase your calories to help speed up your metabolism. However, we're using this purely in the context of your diet exit strategy. So you know exactly what to do after your diet to maintain your weight. And I'm going to be talking through 3 different methods that we can employ to ensure that that happens. And we're going to talk about certain phases within these methods that we can go through in order to ensure that we're getting to a stage where we are naturally and effortlessly maintaining our new target weight. So here's our man Johans, and this guy has just got to his target weight, which is fantastic. But as you can see, the guy loves yo-yoing, and he loves it so much that he applies this to his dietary habits. So he's gained all the weight back. Absolute classic. And then he's lost it all again. But this time, Johans is like, enough is enough. I need to maintain my weight. I can't be yo-yoing like Oprah the whole time. So the reverse diet. This is what we're going to do. This is Johans' exit strategy. And this is going to help remove gold medal syndrome. That feeling at the end of a diet, once you got to your target weight, whereby you're like, yes, I've done it. Now I don't need to worry about my nutrition, my training, because I got to my target weight. And that's, that's all I need to do. I can just completely stop. And that's typically what Johans has been doing before he puts all that weight back on again. And then he's back on another diet, this time maybe keto, next time maybe juice diet, whatever it is. So the key is, do not be a statistic. So as you can see, in a meta-analysis of 29 long-term weight loss studies, more than half of the lost weight was regained within 2 years. And by 5 years, more than 80% of the lost weight was regained. Okay, that's a considerable amount of weight, all that hard work going to waste. So what is our goal? One thing that we want to do is reverse metabolic adaptation. So just to quickly explain that process in more detail. When you are in a dieting phase, the body is in breakdown mode. You're in a calorie deficit, and so things start to slow down. For example, NEAT downregulates. That's basically all those movements, subconscious movements. For example, me gesticulating now, moving around on my chair. All those small movements start to downregulate because your body's like, we need to conserve energy. And that's one of the big ones. And because your body is smaller, it's now using less energy whilst at rest. And so these protective mechanisms are essentially kicking in just to help keep us safe, because the body's freaking out about the fact that it's not getting as much food as it usually is. And so it's just slowing stuff down. So by reversing metabolic adaptation, we're just essentially firing things back up again. Whilst we were in our calorie deficit, we were learning new habits that we maintain, whether we're in a surplus, whether we're at maintenance, whether we're in a deficit. So this is ensuring that we're eating enough protein, ensuring that we're eating enough fruit and veg, getting those good sources of fats in that's going to help bring down inflammation, and ensuring that we know how to fuel ourselves for the activities that we're doing with carbohydrates. And so what we want to do now is make sure that those habits that we learned are second nature. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to add life back in. Now that we're not in a calorie deficit, we don't have to make as many sacrifices in terms of our diet anymore. So we can enjoy the odd burger. We can enjoy a drink every now and then. But it's really important that we have those foundations in place that I talked about in the last slide. So there are 3 different methods that we can employ that will serve as a fantastic exit strategy from your diets to ensure that you are now maintaining your weight for good. So let's get into those. The first one is the gradual reverse. So with the gradual reverse, what we're doing is we are increasing our calories by around 150 to 200 calories per week. This is going to be great for some of you who are fearful that increasing the calories is going to put on your weight, because we can just see the impact on a gradual basis. But one of the downsides of this is it still might feel like you're in a diet. So this gradual approach is just one of the tools that we can use. The next one is the maintenance bump. If you recognize what this is, you're a naughty boy. And so in the maintenance bump, what we do here is we essentially bring your calories back to a predicted maintenance straight away. So we're not doing that gradual moving ourselves up until we find maintenance. We're just going straight back to a guess of what your maintenance will be. And this is typically between 16 and 21 calories per pound of your body weight. It's best to start at the lower end and then see how that affects you. But because we still want you to be taking your weight and tracking an average so that we truly know where our maintenance is, it's going to be good to just experiment with starting at the lower end before we start to move up to the higher ends, if need be. Now, I'd say this is particularly appropriate if you're someone who's just leaned out for a show. You've got yourself to like 5-6% body fat, and so it's going to be absolutely fine for you to go straight to maintenance because you've probably been in quite an aggressive deficit for quite a long time, and things have slowed down to such a degree that we really want to fire those up as quickly as possible. So go straight to maintenance in those scenarios. This might also be appropriate for someone who's just like, you know what, I'm sick of dieting. Let's just go to maintenance. Because the good thing is, guys, if we are tracking your weight and your weight increases by more than it should do, we can just bring it down and then find what your maintenance truly is. But it's not going to be to the same extent as when you were dieting down. So that's another exit strategy that we have up our sleeves. The final strategy that we can use is the 4-week bump. So this is essentially a happy medium between the maintenance bump and the gradual increase. Because what we're doing is we're finding out the calories that you were at 4 weeks before we got to your target weight, and then we're going to use those calories because typically in that last couple of weeks we'll probably decrease calories by quite a bit. Or another thing that you can do, if it so happens that the calories you're on 4 weeks ago were the same, just take your weight in pounds and multiply that between 12 and 15. So slightly shy of the maintenance lower limit, but more than that starting calorie number of 10 times your body weight in pounds. Once we start you on those calories, then obviously we can go through the process of taking your averages and seeing how this new amount of calories affects your weight. So there are different phases that we can go through, whichever method that we use when we start to increase our calories, so that we're doing this in more of a strategic manner. So let me just go through each of those phases now. First one is adding back nutrient-dense foods. We do this mainly because we are reinforcing the fact that we want to be eating mainly minimally processed whole foods. Something that is symptomatic of gold medal syndrome is just thinking, right, it's time to binge. And so we're trying to stave that off as much as possible and just making sure that psychologically you are aware of the fact that we need to still be reinforcing the fact that minimally processed whole foods are the way to go. Getting in as many nutrients as we can, particularly given that we've been in a calorie deficit for so long, is going to be a very important thing to do. So phase 1, let's bring in some more nutrient-dense foods. Phase 2, less nutrient dense. So it's likely the case that towards the end of your diet, you weren't eating as many less nutritious foods. And so we want to bring those back in a strategic manner. And so that's why that's phase 2, because we don't want it to be the case that you are banning yourself from eating foods. Even in the calorie deficit, we didn't encourage that, but it may have had to have been necessary if towards the end of your diet we were trying to get really, really lean. So the way in which we do this will be a lot more strategic. It'll be allowing yourself to have a snack or two during the day, allowing yourself to have desserts, allowing yourself to have pizza, but still making sure that you are aware of portions with these things so that you are not overeating them. And that's going to be much easier for you to execute within your exit strategy. And that's what's going to help you to manage your weight. The next thing we can look at is workout nutrition. So when we go to maintenance, typically our training changes because we've been breaking the body down, and now what we need to do is build the body back up, and we want to probably start building some muscle, as most people are under muscled, which means that we are going to be wanting to lift heavy weights, go into some kind of hypertrophy training phase, and that means that we're going to be increasing our volume of training for specific muscle groups. And that being the case, we want to ensure that our training is fueled. So looking at how you're nourishing yourself before workouts and after workouts is going to be a great thing to look at that may well help you get the most out of your workouts, but also get the most out of your recovery. So that's going to be something that we want to look at in our exit strategy. Next, we've got evening calories. So meals out with friends, date nights, barbecues, etc. These may have been things that you have been sacrificing during your dieting phase. And so we want to, again, strategically reintroduce these into your diet. So it might be one date night a week, one meal out with your friends per week, one weekend meal. But this is going to be a really important thing to do because we need to add life back in, because you may have been sacrificing some of these elements in order for you to get to your goal weight. And so now that we've got to your goal weight, we now need to find ways to bring in these other elements but not going overboard with them, because ultimately we still want to maintain your new weight. Finally, remove tracking. Now, for some people, tracking is the most time-consuming, potentially laborious part of the dieting process, and so that might be one of the things that we need to remove. Again, we need to be strategic with this. We're not just going to stop tracking straight away. So what we can do is we can just start with tracking 3 days per week: a rest day, a training day, and a weekend day, and just make sure that we know typically what we're eating on those days. Once we have that systematized and we kind of have a habit for that, we can remove maybe your training day. And then we just get to a point where we're removing those days until you are removing tracking entirely. Now, personally, I don't recommend that you do this, because I think it's very important to plan out what you're eating, regardless of whether or not you're in a diet, whether or not you're trying to change your physique. It's just good to know. And so I always recommend that you pre-track. But if it's something that you feel like, nah, I can't be doing this anymore, it's a good way to, again, have an exit strategy for this, give yourself a timeline whereby we can just phase ourselves out of tracking. And so that's it, guys. That is the reverse dieting process, more loosely defined as more of an exit strategy rather than the more strictly defined process by which you strategically increase your calories to speed up your metabolism. As you can see, most of the methods that we employ will do that. That is kind of the idea. However, what we're trying to do is find the right tool for the job, depending on your circumstances, and give you strategies and frameworks for each of those tools. Hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully you understand the importance of that, because it is very important. We do not want you to be one of those statistics that regains most of the weight, and everything detailed in this video will ensure that that doesn't happen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.